Congratulations! You have successfully secured a student worker job at Darton State College. This may or may not be your first job, but it will definitely help you to learn more about the work environment before graduating. My name is Claudia Larley. I am the Ethics and Compliance Coordinator here at Darton State College, and I will be conducting the Student Worker Professionalism and Compliance training. Having gotten to this point of viewing this training, you would have or is just about done with the completion of the requisite new hire packet. Completing these forms is only a glimpse of the requirements for acquiring and keeping a student worker position at Darton State College. This training aims to give you an overview of some of the key areas that you need to bear in mind while on the job. The overall goal of the Student Worker Program at Darton is to 1. Help students to make connections between work and life, 2. Develop connections between your job and your major or coursework, 3. Develop conflict resolution skills, 4. Develop or enhance your critical thinking and problem solving skills. 5. Improve your oral and written communication skills. And lastly, prepare you for full-time employment. The topics to be covered during the training include attributes of good student workers, timeliness, timekeeping and work hours, customer service and dress code, training and assessments, confidentiality as it relates to FERPA, discrimination and sexual harassment policy, and that relates to Title IX, the right to know policy, and the ethics code of the University System of Georgia. So, what are the key attributes of a good student worker? Here at Darton State College, we place great emphasis on the following attributes: those who take initiatives, those who are team players, they're flexible, courteous, respectful, detail oriented, reliable, and has great time management skills. Let's take a moment to look at each attributes. Initiative. Student workers should have the ability to assess and think things or tasks through independently. Team player. Darton State College is a dynamic workplace where all departments are encouraged to work together towards achieving specific institutional goals. Student workers are expected to work well as a member of these departments or groups. Flexible. As a student worker, you will be expected to deal with changing conditions. You must be able to adapt to changing situations and not complain or get stressed out because of new processes or initiatives. Courteous and respectful. Student workers must treat fellow team members with courtesy and consideration, not just some of the time, but consistently and in a professional manner. Detail oriented. Careful attention must be given to the details of each responsibility in order to produce consistent and high quality work. Reliable. Student workers are expected to consistently complete assigned tasks with high quality in a timely manner and to do his or her fair share of the work. Time management skills. Student workers are expected to arrive to work on time and fulfill the required hours. Student workers must arrive to work on time based on the schedule agreed upon by you and your supervisor. Student workers should let his or her supervisor know when he or she will be late or absent or make arrangements for coverage. Failure to carry out the above may result in you needing to find a new position. Student workers cannot work more than 19 hours per week. All hours worked must be entered into eTime or ADP via any web-based portal. Your supervisor is not allowed to enter your time. The only exception to this rule is if you, as a student worker, unintentionally neglected to enter time and the time record is needed to complete payroll. In order to have better control over work hours and HR processes, students can only work in one department at any given time. Exceptions must be approved by Human Resources and the appropriate Vice President where different departments share similar budgets. Let us take a moment to look at customer service and dress code. While on the job, you should always address customers and team members in a respectful and professional manner. Prompt attention should be given to everyone seeking services offered by your department. A formal, professional, and courteous tone of voice should always be used when addressing members of the Darton community and when answering the office phone. All written correspondence to supervisors and customers should be professionally written. Student workers should refrain from writing or speaking in everyday vernacular. Let's take a look at dress code. You should always turn up to work recently showered, wearing clean clothes, and have dry hair. You're expected to dress appropriately for the position that you hold and uphold the dress code policies of external placement companies. The following minimum standards shall be observed by Darton office student workers. All dresses should be suitable for the work environment and present a professional image and should be clean and in good repair. Skirts, dresses, and shorts should be at an appropriate length or acceptable length while sitting as well as standing so that undergarments are not visible. The length should be no shorter than mid-thigh. There should be no cut-off shorts, no strapless halter tops, tube tops, spaghetti strap dresses, and blouses worn in office-type positions. No part of the midriff should be exposed. All pants must fit at the hip so that they stay up without a belt. Attire with emblem, lettering, or pictures pertaining to drugs, gangs, sex, profanity, or alcohol should not be worn. Let's look at trainings and assessments. Your initial orientation is conducted by Human Resources, and that includes watching this professionalism and compliance training video. Once you transition to your respective departments, your immediate supervisor or his or her designee will conduct your training for the specific job. Trainings may be ongoing. In order to gather relevant data and to further improve the student worker program here at Darton State College, Human Resources will have each student worker complete an entrance assessment. Upon completion of or separation from a job, a final exit assessment will be conducted. Performance evaluations will be conducted by your supervisor. These will be ongoing and will examine areas such as customer service and relationships, adaptability and initiative, decision making, problem solving and accountability, teamwork and cooperation, results and productivity, and lastly, accomplishments of key job duties. Let's take a moment to look at confidentiality. Each student worker upon hire will be required to sign a confidentiality agreement. Any student in a position of trust will be subject to a background check. These Darton policies are based on the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, commonly known as FERPA. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act protects students' information and records. It prohibits disclosure of protected information to third parties and also people without a need or right to know. A parent of an adult student is considered a third party. Protected information fits into three categories: educational information, and this can only be disclosed with permission of students, or if the student is a minor, with the permission of the parent on a signed form outlining specific information to disclose. The second category is personally identifiable information, and this information can only be disclosed with permission of the student or parent if the student is a minor on a signed form outlining specific information to disclose. The third category is directory information. This can be disclosed without permission. It is important for you to know the difference between educational records and directory information. Educational records include, but is not limited to, records, files, Documents and other materials maintained by Darton, transcripts, GPA, grades, social security numbers, academic and psychological evaluations, judicial or discipline records, and any letters containing such information. Exceptions to non-disclosure applies, such as in the case of an emergency or if all of the personally identifiable information on the record is removed. Directory information, on the other hand, includes but is not limited to information not considered harmful if disclosed, such as name, address, phone number, photo, field of study, date and place of birth, participation in officially recognized activities or sports, dates of attendance, degree received, current grade level, and enrollment status. Students must be given ability to opt out of having this information disclosed. When in doubt, if a record is protected, speak with your supervisor. In this age of technology, it's important that we talk about its usage. Transmitting, retrieving, or storing any communication of a defamatory, discriminatory, harassing, or pornographic nature is prohibited. Employees are prohibited from sending or receiving files that are not related to work. Internal and external emails are considered business records and may be subject to discovery in the event of litigation. Be aware of this possibility when sending emails within and outside of the college. Let's take a moment to look at harassment and discrimination. Darton State College is committed to a policy that ensures the fulfillment of equal opportunity without unlawful discrimination for all applicants for employment, employees, and students. Members of the Darton community, and the Darton community is defined as faculty, staff, and students. All members should be treated with dignity and respect without regard to race, creed, color, sex, national origin, religion, age, veteran status, or disability. Here at Darton, we take retaliation very seriously. Regardless of whether or not an allegation of harassment or discrimination is substantiated, retaliation against the complainant is not tolerated. Any student worker believing he or she is the victim of harassment or discrimination should first, if at all possible, try to resolve the issue with the individual involved. If the student cannot obtain satisfactory results from such a conference, he or she should speak with his or her supervisor. If that fails, you can go ahead and file a complaint in writing to the Equal Opportunity Officer. Let's take a brief moment to talk about Title IX and Clery regulations. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 and its regulations dictate that no individual may be discriminated against on the basis of sex in any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The Jean Clery Act of 1990 imposes duty to report incidents of crime by all campus security authorities. CSAs include all officials who have significant responsibility for students and campus activities. We're now going to move on to sexual harassment. We just looked at Title IX, and Title IX is the policy that really governs sexual harassment on college campuses. Sexual harassment is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. This includes sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature. Student workers have the right of protection from sexual misconduct. Sexual harassment in the university system is prohibited, and the offender may be subject to dismissal or other sanctions after compliance with procedural due process requirements. There are several ways in which you can identify sexual harassment as a student worker. So, unwelcome advances, requests for sexual favors, verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature constitute sexual harassment under the following conditions. 1. Submission to such conduct is made explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of an individual's academic standing or employment. 2. Submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as a basis for academic decisions or employment. 3. Such conduct unreasonably interferes with an individual's academic performance or work or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. The policy applies not only to academics, athletics, and employment, but also housing, financial aid, recruitment, clubs and organizations, and all programs and activities associated with Darton. Off-campus conduct is also included in this policy if it is in any way related to Darton programs or poses a potential threat to the safety of the campus.
Hi, I'm Adam.
Me be like Yonju hooks, yeah, and then I'll sing along with you.
So, he woke up fully clothed with his dog in his bed.
In his bed?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta make a move.
I can walk you home if you like.
Yeah, sure. This is me? No!
You what? I'll see you later, okay?
Now that we've defined the term consent, it is important for me to share with you that even with consent, a sexual relationship between a student and a faculty or staff member is a violation of policy when the staff or faculty member is in a position to supervise, influence, or evaluate the work product or the grading of the same work product of the student presently or at some foreseeable point in the future. This conduct also violates the University System of Georgia Board of Regents' amorous relationship policy. And just a reminder, any student who believes he or she has been sexually harassed can contact, where feasible, his or her supervisor, a faculty member of his or her choosing, a member of administration, or the Title IX coordinator at Darton State College. If a student requires total confidentiality, reports of sexual misconduct should be reported to Darton State College counselor. All other employees will be responsible for making a report to the Title IX coordinator who will conduct a prompt and thorough investigation. We will be taking quite a bit of time to look over the right to know policy. And this is a policy that must be um, shared with all full and part-time faculty, full and part-time staff, and also student workers. So, as an employee of the state of Georgia, you have the right to know about hazardous chemicals in the workplace. This right is guaranteed under Georgia's Public Employee Hazardous Chemical Protection and the Right to Know Act of 1988. Along with your right to know, recent federal regulations now provide you with the right to understand with an updated hazard communication standard. This is the HCS. This new standard makes it easier for you to understand labels on hazardous chemicals and information in safety data sheets. It is our duty here at Darton State College to educate and inform you about potentially hazardous chemicals in the workplace. Under this law, you cannot be fired, disciplined, or discriminated against for exercising your rights under this act. All public employees, including student workers who may be potentially exposed to hazardous chemicals in the workplace, are required to be trained on the hazards associated with these chemicals. This needs to be done upon initial hire, annually, and when a new hazard is introduced in the workplace. Let's look at the right to know policy of the University System of Georgia. You need to be informed on what safety data sheets are and how to use them. You need to know where hazardous chemicals are in your work area. You need to know the locations and availability of training programs. You need to be informed on your right for your physician to receive information on the chemicals you are exposed to. Also, your right against discharge or other discrimination for exercising your rights under this law. There are a few exceptions to the chemicals under the right to know policy. Chemicals are, chemicals that are being transported in state as part of a shipment in interstate or intrastate commerce are exempted. Chemicals covered under the Federal Atomic Energy Act and the Federal Resource Conservation and Recovery Act are exempted. Alcoholic beverages and articles intending for personal consumption are also exempted. Consumer products that are used in the workplace, such as liquid paper or correction fluid, in the same manner or normal consumer use, are also exempted. Along with the right to know policy, as a student worker, you have the right to understand. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, recently updated its Hazard Communication Standard, HCS, making it easier for you to understand information on hazardous chemicals. Two recent significant changes include: 1. New labels on hazardous chemicals. 2. Improved safety data sheets, or SDS. The updated Hazard Communication Standard is now aligned with the United Nations globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, commonly referred to as GHS. This makes it easier for users to understand labeling and that all world users are using the same standard. Let's take a look at each of the two significant changes to the Hazard Communication Standard. The changes to HCS were done in phases. Older labels are being gradually phased out. Based on where you are as a student worker, you may see both old and new labels and safety data sheets for hazardous chemicals in your work environment, sometimes even on the same product. This is why it is extremely important for you to be trained in knowing what to look for in identifying a hazardous chemical. This training is to help you recognize the 9 new hazardous chemical pictograms, distinguish the hazards among the pictograms, and identify the 6 new standardized chemical hazard label elements. One significant change of the updated hazard communication standard is the use of specific criteria for classifying chemical hazards. Hazard classifications now provide specific criteria for health hazards, physical hazards, and environmental hazards. These criteria ensure consistency among chemical manufacturers about the hazardous effects of chemicals and that labels and SDS are more accurate. The main point to remember here is that these hazard classifications serve as the basis for required hazard information provided on labels and safety data sheets. You should be able to see the 9 new pictograms on your slide. Because pictograms will be required on all chemical labels by June 1st, 2015, you must be able to recognize them as student workers and be familiar with their hazard classifications in advance. There are actually 9 new pictograms comprising 8 mandatory ones and 1 non-mandatory pictogram. Each pictogram represents a distinct hazard and consists of a black symbol on a white background and framed within a red diamond border. Their primary purpose is to alert users of the health, environmental, and physical hazards to which they may be exposed. For safety data sheets, however, the pictograms may be provided in black and white or the name of the symbol, but we will look at this later on. Let's compare the old and new pictograms. If you look at your slide, you will see this. Now, with a harmonized system of hazard communication, new pictograms will be replacing some of the common hazardous chemical symbols you may be familiar with. While similarities exist between some of the old symbols and the new pictograms, remember that the pictograms are now determined by the new hazard classifications, that is, the health, physical, and environmental hazards classifications. Now, let's quickly review the physical, health, and environmental hazard pictograms. A physical hazard is classified as posing one of the following hazardous effects: explosives, flammable, and that includes gases, liquids, solids, aerosols; oxidizing, that includes gases, liquids, or solids; self-reactive substances; pyrophoric, that includes liquids or solids; self-heating substances; organic parasites; corrosive to metal, gases under pressure, and substances which, in contact with water, emit flammable gases. A health hazard is classified as posing one of the following hazardous effects: carcinogenicity, mutagenicity, reproductive toxicology, respiratory sensitizer, target organic systemic toxicity, single or repeated exposure, aspiration toxicity, and corrosive to metals. As previously mentioned, we have 3 classifications for the pictograms. These are the physical, health, and environmental hazard pictograms. An environmental hazard is a chemical which is classified as hazardous to the aquatic environment, including acute aquatic toxicity. Let's help you to understand container labels. If a container label contains any of the following terms, the contents are hazardous chemicals. Corrosives. These destroy living tissue on contact. Toxics. These are hazardous to your health. Flammables. readily catch fire. Reactives, these react violently with materials in otherwise stable situations. So there are new labels under HCS. If a container label contains any of the 9 HCS pictograms that we've already spoken about, the contents are considered to be hazardous chemicals. On your slide, you will see an example of a label. Now, the Hazard Communication Standard, or HCS, requires that labels on hazardous chemicals have the following 6 elements. 1. There should be a product identifier. 2. Pictograms. 3. Single words. 4. Hazard statements. 5. Precautionary statements. And 6. Supplier information. Keep in mind also that there is no specific place for the labels to be placed. And under the new standard, there are only 2 signal words, danger and warning. Danger is used for the more severe hazards. Warning is used for the less severe hazards. Safety data sheets and technical assistance. As previously mentioned, new federal regulations require that all employees be trained on the new Hazard Communication Standard label elements and new safety data sheets. We've already covered the HCS label elements. Now let's take a look at safety data sheets. Chemicals typically had the materials safety data sheets, MSDS, but now they have the new safety data sheets, SDS. Let's compare the label with the data sheets. Like the label, the material safety data sheets or the safety data sheets provide workers and emergency personnel with critical information about the health and the physical hazards associated with the chemical. Unlike the label, however, material safety data sheets or safety data sheets are comprehensive documents required by law to be kept on file while chemicals are being used, stored, or transported. Material safety data sheets or the new safety data sheet provide details and procedures for handling or working with the chemical in a safe manner. These details include how they should be stored, disposed, the safety procedures to be followed when handling such a chemical, handling information, permissible exposure limits, spill handling procedures, and personal protective equipment to be used while handling such chemicals. Let us continue to look at the MSDS compared to the SDS. Now, the Hazard Communication Standard now requires the new safety data sheet to have a standardized 16 section format. Sections 2 and 3 have been transposed, and that Section 16 now includes dates for preparation and last revision. It's now pretty much 2016, and as mentioned before, by the end of 2015, all manufacturers should have phased in the new safety data sheet. If you have any questions about chemicals in your workplace, know that by law, materials safety data sheets or the new safety data sheets are supposed to be kept on file while the chemical is being stored, being used, or transported. They should be stored in each facility and readily available to all employees and not in some locked away cabinet. They should be kept in an archive file forever and never thrown away, burnt, or shredded. As a final word on the right to know policy and your right to understand, please ensure that you consult with the materials safety data sheets or the new safety data sheet before using a new chemical in your work area. Remember, the material safety data sheet or the new safety data sheet should accompany all products covered under the right to know law. If a material safety data sheet or the new safety data sheet is not received with a chemical product you ordered, please contact your supervisor and make every effort to obtain one. If one is not obtained within 5 working days, you may refuse to work with the chemical until the information requested is received. You may file a grievance procedure with the Office of Ethics and Compliance if you believe you are adversely affected for exercising your right to know. As mentioned before, you cannot be fired, disciplined, or discriminated against for exercising your right to know. As a student worker here at Darton State College, you are expected to be aware of the ethics code of the University System of Georgia. Every member of the USG community is required to adhere to the statement of core values of the USG. These core values include integrity, excellence, accountability, and respect. These pretty much form and guide the daily work of the organization. Let's take a moment to look at each of these core values. Integrity. It means we will be honest, fair, impartial, and unbiased in our dealings both with and on behalf of the USG. Excellence. This means we will perform our duties to foster a culture of excellence and high quality in everything we do. Accountability. It means we will firmly believe that education in the form of scholarship research, teaching, service, and developing others is a public trust. We will live up to this trust through safeguarding our resources and being good stewards of the human, intellectual, physical, and fiscal resources given to our care. Respect. This means we will recognize the inherent dignity and rights of every person, and we will do our utmost to fulfill our resulting responsibility to treat each person with fairness, compassion, and decency. In addition to the core values of the University System of Georgia, there are also expected code of conducts. The USG recognizes that we all have different values, beliefs, and ethical decision-making processes, and because of that, a code of conduct is used to guide members of the USG community in applying the core values. The following is a summary of the code of conduct. 1. We will uphold the highest standard of intellectual honesty and integrity in the conduct of teaching, research, service, grants administration. We will act as good stewards of the resources and information entrusted to our care. 3. We will perform assigned duties and professional responsibilities in such a manner so as to further the USG mission. 4. We will treat fellow employees, students, and the public with dignity and respect. 5. We will refrain from discriminating against, harassing, or threatening others. 6. We will comply with all applicable laws, rules, regulations, and professional standards. 7. Respect the intellectual property rights of others. 8. We will avoid improper political activities as defined in law and Board of Regents policy. 9. We will protect human health and safety and the environment in all USG operations and activities. 10. We will report wrongdoing to the proper authorities, refrain from retaliating against those who do report violations, and cooperate fully with authorized investigations. 11. We will disclose and avoid improper conflicts of interest. 12. We will refrain from accepting any gift or thing of value in those instances prohibited by law or the Board of Regents policy. 13. And final. We will not use our position or authority improperly to advance the interest of a friend or relative. Thank you so much for taking the time out to view this training. I promise you it will be of help to you as you move on to advance your career and academic goals. We will now have you move on to taking a short quiz. Please feel free to contact me with any questions that you